Aside from having to be careful with the mouth, you actually also gotta be very careful with their tail, especially an alligator bump size, because the bigger ones, when they whip it, it hurts a lot, and it's actually strong enough to break a bone because it's made out of almost pure muscle. For those of the guests that just walked in, what Jake is doing right now, he's trying to tire the alligator before he continues with the capture, because alligators are very strong animals, so if you try to capture while it's full of energy, it's a bad idea. It could throw you off its back, and it's a lot more likely to land a bite because they're a lot quicker when they're full of energy. Now, here in Florida or South Florida, this is the only place in the world where we actually see both alligators and crocodiles coexist. All that we have here are alligators, and how to tell the difference is some small things. Alligators have more of a U-shaped broad snout, so if you look at it from the top, it's more of a U, whereas crocodiles, it's more of like a V or an A shape. Crocodiles have a sharper head, and also the teeth. Alligators, these guys have more of an overbite. When the mouth is closed, you'll see the top teeth poking out, but you won't really see any of the bottom teeth. Whereas crocodiles, both the top and the bottom actually intersect even with the mouth closed. So crocodiles have more of a fiercer look in a way. And another way to tell the difference is the color. So alligators, when they're born, babies or juvenile, they'll have yellow stripes on their side. And over time, as they age, they'll actually fully mature into this dark black color. If you do see green on an alligator, it's not actually the skin, it's algae that grew on them. Whereas crocodiles, depending on the species, because there is more of a variety to them, they tend to be a lot lighter in color. For example, a light gray, light green, or even like a light yellow, depending on the species. Now keep in mind that Bubba is a 9-foot alligator and weighs over 300 pounds. When the Miccosukee would hunt alligators back in the day, they would usually go for, at most, alligators around 6 to 7 feet in length. They would rarely go for an alligator this size because they would have to take it in a canoe back to camp. And it would be really hard to carry Bubba and put him on a canoe. Now that the gator's on land, Jake has more of the advantage, and he's going to be testing out sort of how much energy he's still at. You'll notice as you're tying out the alligator, they tend to be a lot less reactive to touch compared to the initial beginning.
Ooh.
So what Jake just showed you guys is called a jaw pop. All over the face of the alligator, they have these tiny little dots called ISO sensors. Those sensors are what they use to pick up motion and vibration in the water. And so as you saw, they're very sensitive and reactive to touch. Now, how Jake was able to get in front of the alligator and stick his hand is because alligators actually have a blind spot in front of them. An alligator cannot see what's in front of it, only side to side. They have peripheral vision. And so you'll see how this comes into play when it comes to the actual capture. Now, the traditional method the tribe used to capture the alligator was called a frontal catch, where you get in front of the alligator where it can't see you, you lift the head, grab the mouth shut, cover the eyes, and quickly rotate onto the alligator's back. The more modern way of doing it nowadays is considered a safer way. It's called a quick catch. So when you grab the alligator by the tail, pull it towards yourself and hop onto its back. Either catch you gotta make sure that you do not hesitate and that you time it right, because if you do or don't, it gives the alligator enough time to thrash around and you could lose your grip. Now, once you're on top of your alligator, the next step was to tie up the mouth. Keep in mind that when tribal members would do this, a lot of the times they were actually by themselves in the Everglades. You didn't always have a group of people to go out and hunt together. So, to tie up the mouth, what you would do is you would do something called a bulldog. Now, what a bulldog is where you grab the jaws of the alligator and you put it on your throat, and with that you apply pressure, take out a piece of rope, and tie the jaws till it's secure. And there you have it, that's the bulldog. Now what makes that possible is the big lumps you see in the side of the alligator's face that look like cheeks. Those are called the jowls, that's where all the biting pressure comes from. An alligator this size can reach a PSI biting pressure of around 2,000 pounds per square inch. Very strong, powerful bite. Literally like the size of a small car falling on your hand if you were to get bit. But to actually open the mouth in comparison, it's pretty small, weak muscles. It's those small ones you see right there that Jake's pointing out to you. And it's those small muscles that give you the ability to have the mouth shut with the grip of your hand or your neck when you're doing the bulldog. Now the next step after that was to flip the alligator upside down. When you flip an alligator upside down, it actually goes to sleep or unconscious. So then you can tie up the arms and the legs of the alligator, flip it down to its belly, and take it in a canoe back to camp. Now once the alligator is back in camp, the tribe's culture is very important that when you hunt an animal, you find a use for everything out of respect for it to not be wasteful. So use was found for everything on the alligator. Jake's showing you guys what's called a Florida smile. Oh, he's fine back. It happens. So Jake's showing you guys the Florida smile. Alligators have a total of 80 teeth, 40 in the top, 40 in the bottom. Those teeth were used to make all sorts of jewelry. The scutes could be cut into strips and tied to the bottom of their feet for when they would go hunting, sort of like shoes to have better grounding. The ribs were sharpened and turned into knives. The jaw of the gator was split in half and used as hammers. The lungs and the intestines were dried out. The lungs were used for water storage, and the intestines were used to make a rope-like material. The skin was also used at trading posts to get access to all sorts of things such as pots, pans, fabric, sewing machines, gunpowder, pretty much anything to improve their way of life out here in the Everglades. And so all the alligators that we have here at the village, these are all nuisance alligators. These are alligators that, believe it or not, due to human interaction or people giving them food, over time they will lose the natural fear that they have of us. And so it leads up to incidents you see in the news or social media of an alligator attack, alligator in a poor backyard eating a cat or dog in the neighborhood. So when that happens, Fish and Wildlife will have to capture the alligator, and once it's captured, they'll either be sent to a zoo or sanctuary like this one, which honestly doesn't always happen because there's so many nuisance gators here in Florida, or sadly enough, they do have to get put down and euthanized. And so, because of the long history the tribe has had with the American alligator, to sort of thank you back to all the for their people, here at the village, we take in and save as many gators as we can all year round to prevent them from having to be killed. And so, that does conclude the demonstration of the gator show. We're going to take out a baby alligator for you guys to hold and take pictures with. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Jake. And if you did enjoy the show and want to show Jake some love, we do have a cookie jar for him right next to the hand sanitizer. It's not necessary, but it is always appreciated. And again, we want to thank you guys so much for coming out and watching the show. Thank you. We all have the baby gator in a bit.
Like a couple months?
He's about like 3 years old.
3 years old?
Yeah.
What is the oldest one? How many years is it?
In the wild, they can live to over about 50 years old at most. But in captivity, they can live to over 100 years old.